the promised Messiah. Angels, let your song begin. Here comes heaven. Christ is born in Bethlehem. Here comes heaven. Sinner, wait no more. Love has broken the silence. Come, let us adore. The Savior is with us. Angels, let your song begin. Here comes heaven. Christ is born in Bethlehem. Here comes heaven. Here comes heaven. Now behold his glory, glory in the highest. All the earth rejoice, for Christ is born. Now behold his glory, glory in the highest. All the earth rejoice, for Christ is born. Over all who mourn breaks the dawn of salvation. Darkness reigns no more, for Jesus is greater. He is greater. Angels, let your song begin. Here comes heaven. Christ is born in Bethlehem. Here comes heaven. Angels, let your song begin. Here comes heaven. Christ is born in Bethlehem. Here comes heaven. Here comes heaven.
Of the dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world
One of my favorite things to do with my kids at Christmas time is volunteering to ring the bell for the Salvation Army outside Giant Eagle. I know some of you might get annoyed by that bell ringing outside the grocery store at Walmart every year during this time, but that bell represents so many hurting people that are able to be helped and supported with every penny that's dropped in that red kettle. Now, in your experience box, there's some bells. If you can pull those out right now, because I want to talk about the bell. A bell is a really unique thing that has such a variety of functions. You know, for some, a bell is a call to action. Firemen and women all over the country suit up and prepare to risk their lives when an alarm bell is sounded. For others, it's a sign of hope and progress as they ring the bell, symbolizing the completion of their chemo treatments. For still others, a bell is not a good thing. Every year at memorial services across our country, a bell is rung to remember lives that have been lost at war or lost serving our communities as first responders. And in services like these, every ring of that bell carries with it the immense weight and pain of loss that family members carry when they remember their loved one's sacrifice. At Christmas time, bells represent different things too. They represent belief in something bigger for those of you who are fans of the Polar Express, or the idea that an angel has received its wings for you fans of It's a Wonderful Life. And you may have not thought much about the different uses and functions of a bell, but just like different approaches to ringing a bell or experiencing a bell, the same is true in how we experience Christmas. There's a lot of different ways we experience Christmas. But most people assume there's really only one proper way to experience Christmas. And that's a holiday that's filled with joy and full of happiness. And this is the goal that many of us strive for every year. After all, that's what we see in all the Hallmark movies and the Christmas specials. Christmas is supposed to be a happy time, a time to reflect and appreciate the good things, to be grateful for things like family and friends and all that we've been blessed with. The challenge, though, is that real life is nothing like a Hallmark movie. And there are times when we walk into the Christmas season with incredible pain, grief, or difficulty. And this puts us at odds with how we're supposed to really operate, function, and live our lives at this time of the year. I've even talked to people that feel uncomfortable coming to a Christmas service at church because they don't want to ruin everyone's good time with the pain or discouragement that the Christmas season has brought out of them. And can I be honest? I've lived most of my life with the same idea or misconception about Christmas. I mean, I absolutely love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year. I get to enjoy some of my favorite things, family and snow and sweets. And I've always thought Christmas should be a special, magical time of the year. And I was fortunate that as a child, that this was usually the case. But then I became an adult and life happened. Things happen. Pain enters the scene. And this has forced me to really do one of two things. Do I hide my pain, or am I authentic about the pain I'm experiencing during the holidays? Now, hiding my pain seems like the right thing to do. After all, it's supposed to be a happy time, right? But then I read the Christmas story. And now I've read the Christmas story hundreds of times, but this one time, something different stood out to me. Here's what it says. In Luke's Gospel, chapter 2, we'll start in verse 1. We read this. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone who went to their own town to register. Now, this explained why Joseph and Mary had to travel to Bethlehem. Isn't it fascinating that even on the first Christmas, Mary and Joseph had obligatory responsibilities? It puts all those family gatherings and traditions that you hate into a little bit of a different context. You're not alone. Mary and Joseph had to too. Now, then it continues. Listen to this in verse 4. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth to Galilee, to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was experiencing a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. Now here's what stood out to me. Look at how many times, listen to how many times things in these verses happened that Mary never chose. She didn't choose to have a census be issued when she was 9 months pregnant. She didn't choose to get pregnant. She didn't choose to be in a town so overrun with people there was no place to stay. She didn't choose where she would give birth to her firstborn child. She definitely didn't choose or could have never imagined the place that she would put that newborn in being an animal's trough, or we lovingly call or refer to as a manger. She didn't choose any of that. Can I be transparent for a moment? Just one of those things by itself might send me off the rails, given the circumstances Mary and Joseph were facing. Like, really, why did she have to get pregnant when she did? That really complicated the whole marriage thing with Joseph. Why did that census have to happen now, not like a month later? Why at this point in her pregnancy? Does Joseph really have to be from this little town with not enough Hampton Inns? And she's giving birth to the stinking Son of God. You'd think she'd have something a little more sanitary and soft to put the baby in than a feeding trough. And maybe you've asked questions about your own life like this at times. Like, why did I have to lose that person at this time of the year? Or when I was at this age? Why did my job let me go now? Why can't I have kids? Why aren't my finances better? Why can't I find that perfect someone to spend the rest of my life with? And while we might ask these questions really throughout the year, during the holidays, if we're honest, they seem to echo a little louder. And all the while, we feel this pressure to hide or suppress those feelings so we don't ruin someone else's Christmas. But here's the deal. Mary could have asked those same questions. And while we don't know, she very well may have. What's important for us today isn't in the asking, but where she landed with those questions. You see, like bells, questions have a lot of different functions. Questions can lead us to more questions. They can lead us to answers, or to confusion, or to peace. The difference is where our questions lead us. And those differences really are dependent on the choices we make with those questions. Listen to what the gospel writer Luke writes about Mary at the end of this record of Christ's birth. In verse 51 of Luke 2. It says this, "But his mother treasured all these things in her heart." Did you catch that? With all the setbacks, all the interruptions, and the difficulty that Jesus entering the world brought into Mary's life, she still treasured it all somehow. In other words, what others saw as a cost, she saw as a value. What one person viewed as a setback, she viewed as an opportunity. And it wasn't about what was happening or about how she was experiencing. It was about how she chose to view what was happening. Now, I don't in any way want to minimize the weight of pain or struggle that you might be experiencing on this Christmas Eve, this evening. And I'm not saying just get over it and choose a different perspective. But what I am saying is that Christmas isn't for perfect people who have it all together. Jesus was born to a scared young girl and a struggling carpenter to show us that Christmas isn't about joy. It's not about happiness. And it's not about capturing this magical vibe of this special holiday. Christmas, at its core, is about God invading our mess and giving us the opportunity to choose to ring a bell of hope as opposed to one of pain or destruction. Whatever Christmas looks like for you today or this year, whether you're at the top of the world or in the bottom of the bucket, I want to encourage you on this Christmas Eve night that Jesus meets you where you are, not to simply make you feel better, but to give you a choice to ring your bell, to let your bell symbolize a choice you intentionally are making to face your pain, your fears, and your struggles. And not to just stop there, but to move forward toward a Jesus that willingly stepped into your pain so that you could experience wholeness. In fact, the prophet Isaiah would write these words over 700 years before Christ was born. It's recorded in Isaiah chapter 53, verse 4. It says, "Surely he took up our pain, he bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him, and afflicted." Speaking of Jesus. "But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities." Listen to this. "The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed." It's interesting that in a season where we talk about peace on earth, goodwill to men, that we so easily forget about the one that took our pain so we could actually experience that peace. And this Christmas season, let's take the life we've been given, the bell we hold, and make a conscious choice to find value wherever our lives are, even in difficulty and struggle, and even in overwhelming circumstances that we might be facing. And as we close tonight, I want to encourage you to pull out the candles that were provided for you in your experience box, or maybe that you have around your home. Turn the lights down in the room. And as we sing Silent Night together, I want you to light those candles. Now, this is such a special moment, but it's more than just a moment of nostalgia. It's symbolic of the light that we possess in the midst of the darkness around us. Even when all else is fading around us, God within us stands strong. Even on this simple, silent night, the whispers of God's grace can still be heard. Let's sing this song together this evening.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.
Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glory stream from heaven afar, heavenly hosts sing Alleluia. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born.
Silent night, holy night, wondrous star, lend thy light, with the angels let us sing. Alleluia to our King. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born.
What a special song to sing and close out this Christmas Eve experience. Thank you guys so much for joining us and bringing us into your home, that we could celebrate Christmas together this evening. I pray that this Christmas season isn't just another holiday that we survive through, that we try to get through, but I pray that this is a season where you get to experience the blessings of God, the goodness of God, and all that God has granted to you, and that you use it to do good in others' lives. Thank you so much for joining us. May you have an incredible Christmas tomorrow with your family and friends and those you gather with. May you be a light that shines so brightly in the darkness. From our family to yours, Merry Christmas.